Church weddings or church marriage are not valid under the Nigerian law. You may probably be thinking that this is a clickbait. No, this is not. Please sit back and watch this video to the very end. What does the law say about church weddings or church marriage in Nigeria? There is no requirement for you to get married in the church unless you desire so. Let me repeat that. No requirement under the Nigerian law for you to get married in the church unless you desire so. There are some people that say that church marriage is not part of us, it's actually a borrowed tradition, blah 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 blah. But according to the law, it is not recognized that you must get married in the church. Okay, so we have three types of marriages in under the Nigerian law. We have the statutory marriage, we have the customary marriage, and we have marriage according to Islamic law. So let's dive into it. The customary marriage is the type of marriage whereby a man and a woman, to the exclusion of others, it is monogamous in nature. Okay, and there are three ways that you can contract this type of marriage. Okay, church marriage is actually one of it, but it is not compulsory that you go that route. This is what I mean. I'll also come up with a video about statutory marriage in Nigeria. So when we talk about statutory marriage, the important thing you need to do as an intending couple is that you need to proceed to a registry and make inquiries. Then the basic information they are going to give you, I'll try to come up with another video where you get enough information about that. But in order not to deviate from the topic for today, so under the statutory marriage, there are three ways you can contract a statutory marriage. Okay, and number one is going to the marriage registry. Number two is a licensed place of worship, and that is where the church comes in. So not just church as a church, but a licensed place. So that is the difference. That is, that church must have been licensed to carry on such marriage. So it means that not all church that you see out there that they are licensed place of worship. So once a church is not a licensed place of worship, whatsoever you're doing with your partner in that church is just a mere Christian belief according to the law. Okay, it is not a bad thing. The law is not saying that you contracting or you having your marriage in a church that probably is not a good thing or it is not allowed. That is not it. Just that the law is saying that it is not recognized. So the third one is a special license. That is, people can choose to go to the museum, go to like use their backyard and have the legally binding marriage. Okay, so those are the three ways. Any of those three ways one can contract a marriage. So for church marriage, like I've said earlier, it has to be a licensed place of worship, and it must be by a recognized man of God of that church. There are requirements that must be followed in order for that marriage not to be invalid. So a situation whereby people want to contract the marriage at the marriage registry and also want to proceed to the church is just a formality. It's just a Christian, you just want to get the blessing, just want people to felicitate with you and get the blessing of the pastors and people like that. But under the Nigerian law, it is not mandatory, except of course, like I mentioned earlier, when you want instead of going to the marriage registry or having a special license to have the legally binding marriage, you make that church, and it is not you, that church must have applied before that time for that church to be licensed. So the fact that a church is very big, or the fact that there is a big a man of God, a renowned one, will not make your marriage valid. So in a situation whereby you contracted, you have your traditional marriage, it is recognized under the law, and you choose not to go to the registry, and you choose not to have your wedding in a church that is licensed and not a special license. I mean, maybe like a museum, like I mentioned earlier. It will mean that if you do not do any of those three things, it will mean that your marriage is not, how can I put it now? Your marriage is not according to the statutes. Although the traditional marriage is recognized. Let me break it down in a more simple way. So let's assume Mr. A and Mr. B are about to get married, and they choose to have their traditional marriage and a church marriage, okay? A church wedding, just those two things. So once the bride price is being paid and there is consent from the families and from the bride and the groom, that traditional marriage is recognized by the law. Okay, so If when that is done and they proceed to a church to get married, and the church is not a licensed place of worship, it means, according to law, it means that their marriage is not according to the statutes. Although the traditional marriage is recognized under the law, okay, but it is not according to the statute. So it means that, for example, in a case of bigamy, if either of them marry another person in the future, there is no situation of bigamy, because it is not a monogamous marriage they have contracted. Traditional marriage, custom, we see custom, my custom, Yoruba custom, we see that a man is allowed to have more than one wife. So the church, it is just the couple's belief now that will guide them. So except if that church is a licensed place of worship, that is when other things, issues from the statute, like the bigamy and every other right, would, like right from the Marriage Act, will be applicable to those couple. So in essence, you do not need to have a traditional marriage, church marriage, and marriage at the marriage registry. It is possible for one to have church too. The traditional marriage is very much important, biblically speaking, and I know that that is our tradition one. And the registry, you can choose to have a licensed place of worship. How do you know if your church is a licensed place of worship? Is by you asking the man of God, the pastor, the priest, have you obtained any form of license from the minister to conduct marriage in your church? Not just the marriage certificate that the church do issue to people. There is a particular certificate that will have the coat of arms, that you know that, okay, this one is from the government. Okay, so church marriage, like I've mentioned earlier, in general are not valid, except of course when that place is a licensed place of worship. We have authorities. There is a court of appeal authority in the case of Obikwe and Obikwe that says that when people come together and get married in the church, and the church is not a licensed place of worship, it is just a mere formality of their Christian belief and nothing more. Okay, so you cannot say, oh, this man misbehaved or this woman misbehaved and you want the rights according to the Marriage Act. It will not be possible. Conclusively, the absence of a church wedding will not invalidate your marriage. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.